In this video, I'm going to walk through the process of using long division to find the quotient of a polynomial, of two polynomials. We're going to divide negative 14b plus 49b squared minus 2 divided by 7b minus 1. Here's what it would look like if you read it out loud, and notice that I've rewritten this numerator to be in descending order. So this negative 14b plus 49b squared minus 2, I rewrote it to put the b squared first, and then the b term, and then the constant. Descending order means I'm going to put them so that the highest exponented variable, the b squared, comes first, and then the linear term, the b, and then the constant term, the minus 2. So I'm going to rewrite that, but what I'm thinking when I see this fraction is I'm thinking this numerator, the top, divided by the bottom, the denominator. So if I saw this fraction, let me get a pen that'll work. If I saw this fraction, 291 over 4, that's the same thing as 291 divided by 4. Now, just as a quick review, do you remember this? That if I were to do this 291 divided by 4 with my long division, just from my 5th grade arithmetic, just as a quick review, what I would do is I'd write the 4 on the outside. 4 doesn't go into 2, but 4 does go into 29. And I could say that 4 goes into 29, not 8 times. I meant to say, I'm thinking 7, and I'm writing 8. 4 goes into 29 7 times. So the first thing I did here, if you recall, was I divided. And then I'm going to multiply. 7 times 4 is 28. So first I divide, then I multiply. And then do you remember what comes next? You subtract. 29 minus 28 is 1. Once we've done that, we're ready to start over. So the start over process is bring down. I'm going to bring down this 1 at the top, and then I start all over. I'll go back here to divide. Now I've got 11 divided by 4. 4 goes into 11 twice. Multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract. 11 minus 8 is 3. And there's nothing else to bring down, so I could say that this is a remainder 3. Now another way I could actually write this looks like this. I could say 291 divided by 4 is equivalent to 72 plus the remainder 3 over the divisor 4. So it's 72 and 3/4. You can write it like that also, 72 and 3/4. Now, if you use your fraction arithmetic to do 72 times 4 plus 3 over 4, we could convert that to a improper fraction, and guess what you'd get? You'd get this 291 over 4. Now, that's what you want to think of as we do this division. Let's transfer now over to our algebra, and we're really going to use the same process or similar process. We're going to put our divisor, the denominator, outside the bracket, because it's divided by 7b minus 1. And I'm going to put the 49b squared minus 14b minus 2 inside the division bar. Now, be sure you're being neat. Give yourself some extra space. And above all, make sure you've got these in descending order. We put the b squared term first, and then the b term, and then the constant. The whole process falls apart if you forget that important step. Off to the side, as I look here to what I did with the arithmetic example. So first, that is the wrong color to highlight with. I'm sorry, let me use this, yellow. first thing I did was I divided, right? So I'm going to do that here for this example, but watch how I'm going to divide this. I'm going to take the 49b squared, and it is okay to do this off to the side, kind of like a scrap work, but don't do it on an actual scrap paper. Do it on the paper with your problem so you can refer to this easily. There's no reason to do it on a separate paper that you're going to throw away. So I'm doing 49b squared divided by 7b. I'm going to write that as a fraction, and then it's just simplifying, right? 49 divided by 7 is 7. B squared divided by b is b. So the divisor is 7b minus 1, and the quotient is 7b. I'm going to write that 7b over the b term, so over the minus 14b. Next, I'm ready to move to the next step, which, as you recall, was multiply. So I'm going to multiply this 7b times our divisor, 7b minus 1. When I do that multiplication, I could do that here off to the side. Looks like this. It's just going to be distributing. 7b times 7b minus 1. When I distribute that, 7b times 7b is 49b squared. And then 7b times negative 1 is negative 7b. So I'm going to write that product here just like I wrote this 28 here, right? 49b squared minus 7b. Now watch closely what's going to happen next, because the next step is to subtract, isn't it? So as I subtract, and let me warn you that this is the step where students who mostly get this process but have a tiny little mistake, this is where they'll often make it. So if you want to make sure you've got this correct, make sure you understand that what we're doing is subtracting this whole blue piece. So really, we're saying 49b squared minus 49b squared. And this gets a little confusing because it's negative 14b minus negative 7b. So it gets a little bit intense here. Let me show you the niftiest trick to make this so much more obvious. I'm going to change my subtraction to addition and change each of these pieces inside the parenthesis. I'll change each of those pieces to their opposite. I'm going to try and do this color-coded so you can look back and see what I've just done. And if you need to, rewind the video and watch that step again. But if you look at the pink, it was minus the blue 49b squared minus 7b. I've done the 2 mark rule for subtraction. That means with the green, I changed this subtraction. This was the pink subtract, right? I changed that to addition, and then I changed the 49b squared to its opposite, so I did minus 49b squared. And this negative 7b, 1 mark there, I've changed it from subtract to add. So I've distributed that negative. Adding is going to be much easier than subtracting. Let me show you what I mean by that. I said it earlier that what we were doing was subtracting 49b squared minus 49b squared, but now as I see it written above each other as an adding, it's so much more clear that it's a negative. And I said that what we were doing was negative 14b minus negative 7b, but it's so easy to lose one of those negatives. So by changing it to addition, I can see it's just negative 14 plus 7b. Negative 14 plus 7 is negative 7, so we get negative 7b. And now we're ready to start all over again because we're here at this step, bring down. What am I going to bring down? I'm going to bring down the minus or negative 2. Make sure you're bringing it down as a negative. So negative 2 comes down. And I'm going to start the process all over. I've got this negative 7b minus 2 divided by 7b minus 1. Here's how I'm going to approach it. The same way I approached it above. I've got the negative 7b and I'm going to divide it by 7b. I know it's confusing because we're really dividing negative 7b minus 2, but we're just going to take the first term, the negative 7b over 7b. And you see those divide right out. We're not left with 0 or with nothing or with negative. What it is a negative 1. It's a negative 1 because that 7b divided by 7b is 1. So we get the opposite of 1, or negative 1. And that's our quotient. I'll write that here on the quotient line. And then I'm going to keep plugging away here because the next step, so I did the divide. Now I'm going to multiply. Negative 1 times 7b minus 1 is going to look like this. Negative 1 times 7b. I'm just changing both of them to their opposites, right? So negative 1 times 7b is negative 7b. Negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. And then I'm ready to do the next step, subtract. Here, let me say it again. We'll practice this one more time. This is where students are most likely to make a mistake. I'm going to clear off the 0. We don't really need it there, just to clean it up and make it crystal clear, I hope, for everyone. We're going to subtract this whole green thing. So to subtract that whole thing, what's a nice color? How about if I use this blue here? To subtract this, I'm going to change the subtraction to add and change each of these terms inside that parenthesis to their opposite. And now it's just adding, right? That's easy. Negative 7b plus 7b, that just clears away to 0. Negative 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3, and there's our remainder. So the remainder, negative 3. The way I'm going to write the final answer is like this. I've got my quotient, 7b minus 1, but then I'm going to say plus this negative 3 over the divisor, 7b minus 1. Do you notice that that plus a negative 3 could just be written minus 3 over the 7b minus 1? You know, I get it. I know that this is not an easy process. It takes a little bit of practice, and it takes a whole lot of concentration and thoughts. But if you'll practice through this just a few times, remember back when you first learned how to do long division with numbers, it took a little practice, didn't it? And if you'll practice this, use this example and maybe even a few others until it becomes crystal clear to you, then I know you can get this. I know you can do this. And if you do get hung up on any of the steps or have a question about any of the work I've done, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be so happy to help you better understand this process.